7 years passed since we last met. This was for The Great Bear. You wrote the score for that. And what changed till then? You wrote music for animation, for children's film, for Verlassgepost Therapie, Erlösung in German. What are your thoughts on your career so far?
Well, first of all, I must say I'm really grateful the way things have turned out. There's been a very steady inflow of work to me, and I've been very happy to work with very interesting directors. Esben Toft Jakobsen, who made the Great Bear, returned 3 years later here in Berlin with his Beyond, or it has many different international titles. Yeah. The list is long. So I've seen this collaboration with Esben as one of the very dear projects to me. The way that he gave space for music and for our collaboration and for the music to be a co-component of the story in a very integrated way was really nice. And when I look back now, I think almost all the feature films I've been doing has been with an orchestral score to various extents. And with my background in classical composition, that's where I'm coming from as a composer. Of course, that's what I'm really like. I'm alive and kicking for that. I really feel in my element when I can use and express myself through the orchestra. And I think it's. I mean, as a film composer, every project is different. Every story is different. You have to find a certain kind of DNA to express the way, or to find the way that the music helps telling the story. So it's. I feel it's a very challenging but also rewarding occupation to do what I do.
As far as I know, you never worked before with a director, Pernille Fischer Christensen. How did she got notice of you, and how did you become the composer of Becoming Astrid?
I got a call from an old friend of mine that knew Pernille very well, and he had recommended me to her, and I think she also knew a sound designer that I worked with many times that recommended me. So she heard my name from different sources. I didn't know her personally before we started out on this film. So as it is very often with the things that we do, it's very hard to apply directly for jobs. I mean, we are very dependent on actually getting the calls. So in that perspective, it was quite normal, I guess. And I'm very happy that I came out as someone she would consider for this.
At what stage of the film where you engaged came on board?
Quite late. We had not so much time on our hands to do the score, so it was a bit of a compressed working process. But it was also very. I mean, I feel I learned a lot as a film composer doing this thing, especially with Pernille, because she's a very, very delicate and very, very artful director, I would say. She knows very much what she likes and what she wants, and she can see things that I could not at first see. And she had this vision that she was very truthful to, and in the work coming to where you can see now the finished product was quite interesting. And I think the film is very, very touching, very it's a very, how I would say, it goes deep into human emotions. So it was also quite a task to find this, a bit like when you're making food. I mean, you have to find the very right dose for the spices. If you can't have too little and you can't have too much. So we spent very much time figuring out how big could the score actually be before we went too far and told people what to feel, rather than having them feel it and be inside the universe.
Do you know why you came so late on board?
There were several reasons for that. I don't know so much about it, but that there was a different composer involved before me. I'm not so familiar with all the details, and frankly, it's not so interesting. But the fact was that once I was in, the clock was ticking quite dramatically. So.
before you came, I spoke to Pernille a bit, and I said to her, when I hear the name Astrid Lindgren, in my mind I hear the song for Pipi Longstocking. And I asked her, why didn't you use the song, or like maybe bits of the song?
And what did she say?
I think she didn't give me quite an answer. So
yeah,
why not use some musical references that people know?
Yeah, I think when you see the film, you realize that it's not as much about her as an author as about her as a human being, and sort of becoming this grown woman that she would be through what happened to her in her life in these early youth years, with the son that she gave birth to. So I think one of the very first things Pernille said to me when we were starting out was like, you have to know this is not a traditional biopic. This is not a fairy tale. Astrid Lindgren was a fairy tale children's author, but this is not about that. So the music is not going to be fantastic. It's not going to be epic. It's not going to be flourishing in any ways. It's going to be about humans. So it will be something else. So I had to tune into that sort of that way of thinking about it. And I think in that sense, taking something as the Pipi Longstocking theme would sort of be from a completely different world than what the film was about. So it was never really a thing that we discussed at all. So.
Did you had some specific ideas for you? Because when she had another composer, she might have his tunes in her head. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we very much try to start on a clean slate, because I think as any artist would have it, it has to be coming from you, and if you start taking in foreign ideas like that, it will mud the picture, and we had not so much time on our hands that it was either or, I think, a situation.
Did she had a temp score on the film?
Yeah, there was used a temp score as always. I mean, all editors used those these days. So it was a very big variation of various composers.
What idea had you for the score when you started? You are the composer now. What ideas, and how did you find the first ideas for the music?
It was important for me to feel Astrid's character as I mean, in the film she's very much a driving force. I mean, it's always about her. It's about what she feels, what she goes through, and she has this very real sense of stamina and will in the film. So I wanted to portray her as a strong young woman, and not to give her too much, I mean, it didn't need to be too sweet in a way. It shouldn't necessarily be a female music in that sense, but I wanted to have something that could be, thematic, but not overly sort of like a theme in that sense. So it was somewhere in between. I wanted it to develop through the film without being like a leitmotif. I'm not even sure what it's called in English, but
Yeah, for me, when I watched the film, it was like 4 themes: the happy Astrid, the angry Astrid, and then the distressed when something happened, and then she reacts to that distressing music. How did you use the music for the character? Is it kind for her moods? Because I think we hear music when something has happened to her, but not in that moment, but after that moment.
Yeah, I think it was very clear to me when I saw the first cut of the film, still with the temp music, that Pernille and the editors had made a very clear choice that there were scenes that were music scenes where the music had space, and for me that was very nice to actually feel that it was sort of a reserved for me to fill it out with emotion and character. So as you rightly say, it's about reactions to things more than like telling it before it happens what happens. So but there was also like scenes like when she cuts her hair early on in the film, which, as I understand, at that time, I mean, the film takes place in mid 1920s. So for a young woman to cut her hair short at that time would be like a huge statement, like shaving your head bald today or something like that. It was completely unheard of. She was the first woman in the town to do that. So we also needed to have something that was just full of vigor and energy, and it became almost like a little choreography with her sitting there and just like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm really cutting off my hair, and I'm becoming a young woman with my own sort of voice and my own will. So I think it in a way, many of the musical moments were already sort of put on a plate for me from the editors.
What can you tell me about the instrumentation? Because as I remember, I don't hear trumpets, mostly piano, strings, and maybe harp.
Yeah, the score is very much string heavy. We have certain places there it is large string orchestra, maybe like a normal symphony orchestra size string section, and down to just many cues. Also, many of the music pieces are made with string quartet, so it's sort of in between that scope. And then the piano I sort of use as a as a contrast to the strings in a way. And then we have the harp and not much more. There's a little bit of organ here and there, which is also taking a prominent place in the end of the film, because also the religion, it plays a role in the story. So it was kind of a timbre that we could bring in as something extra. But apart from that, it's quite a aesthetic choice of instrumental colors. That's true.
Did she talk to you about what kind of instruments you shouldn't use?
Yeah, I think we agreed on this band quite early on, so there wasn't much discussion. Very early on we were thinking maybe also some wind soloists, but quite early it became clear to me that it wasn't really doing anything necessary for the scenes. So we decided to just have a quite limited choice of colors, but then sort of use them to the extreme. And as you maybe can recall, there are scenes where we just have the quartet, but they're playing very, very soft, and they're playing very almost with no vibrato, and there's some scenes that deals with a lot of distress for Astrid, and it kind of gets into her head. I think the music it's sort of portraying how she feels, and just it enhances that sort of tension that is between her and the world.
We have also some source cues, the band playing, and an LP and the music in the cafe, I think. Could you influence those songs we hear, or did you have them in the script?
When I came in, those songs were already placed, so I was never asked about them at all. So I just had to sort of know that they were there, and it's as it often is, the score and the source music is quite different worlds. They don't necessarily have much to do with each other. So
I had the luck to see a version of the film from December and then the cinema version. And in my mind, the music on the December version was more subtle. And in the cinema, maybe it's because of the cinema itself, it was a bit loud. And sometimes, for me at least, there was no fade in or fade out, but the music abruptly ends. Was it also done consciously, or is it because of the cinema mixing? I don't know.
No, it's quite conscious that we press the way that the score comes through in certain scenes. I wouldn't agree that it's very loud consistently through the film, but there are certain scenes where it's really almost like a headache. It goes in as a very conscious mean to use the music like that and to just be like almost like where you start to feel uncomfortable with it. I can tell you, Pernille is a very, nothing happens in her films for no reason. It's very thought out, all of it. So you can be sure of that.
How much music did you compose for the film? Because also for me it was, at first I thought, oh, there will be lots of music, then there wasn't lots of music. How much minutes did you compose finally?
I think in total it's around 45 minutes of score. And the film is 2 hours long, so actually it's quite a bit when you think of it. But it's true that the first half of the film is not very score heavy. It sort of gathers speed as we progress.
Coming back to the instrumentation, did you also sort of using instruments from the country folk, let's say, because she is a farmer's girl, comes from a farmer's family?
I mean, in a way, you can say the violin is a folk instrument in the Scandinavian countries. So to that perspective, some of the way that you hear string quartet would have a little bit of a hook into that world, but not too much. I mean, I never thought of the score as being portraying the world, but it was about Astrid and her world.
The film was also financed from German money, and as we heard on the Nordic Film Music Day, if you get money from a certain place, maybe they want to have a say in the composer. Was it the case here, or for the recording of the music?
I mean, as far as I know, the film is co-financed between. I mean, Sweden is the major financer, and Denmark and Germany is equally. So we have like a Danish composer, Danish photographer, Danish editors, Danish director, and so on. So there's quite a lot of Denmark in it, in that perspective.
Where did you record the music?
I went to Budapest to record the score in the Budapest radio with the Budapest Art Orchestra. It's a band that I've been using quite a lot now, also for Conspiracy of Faith or Flaschenpost from P, the last one. They're very, very nice players to work with, and I think they gave us a lot of emotion for the score.
How much time did you had to write the music? In the December version, I hear music, a little bit of piano and strings, and I think nothing much more. How much time did you had to write the score?
I'm not sure which version you've heard. It was probably like it probably had none of my music in it. If I
it had music that sounded like the cinema version. It was from December, I think.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think I had like a month and a half in total. So it was a well compressed process, you can say so.
How did you react the pressure? I know you had you compose music now for relatively long time. Is it now going faster for you? Do you find the themes that the director likes more easily?
Oh man, that's a hard question, because every project is different, and it's all about the cooperation with the director. If it works well, things are flowing, and I think in this perspective we found a way to where the energy was going well, so it went quite smoothly, and it's always a pressure to write for films, because you have a deadline where the orchestra is already booked, and there's no much time than what is in front of you, and you have to write scores, partitures, all of that as well. It's a stressed job in that perspective, but I don't think you can talk about it being more or less easy than 6 years ago. It's all about finding the key to the film. I think that's what's really hard. I mean, the beginning is always troublesome, because it's really like everything else in the film is already done. The actors are there, it's filmed, locations, editing. Everything is sort of within what comes from the script, and then the music comes and is from somewhere else. It's a creative, different DNA, another pool of thoughts, and somehow it has to merge into this world that is already there, and that process can sometimes be quite interesting, and that's I mean, but once you find the key to that, then that's where it gets funny.
Are you happy with the places where we hear in the final version the music?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, I think it's really scripted very well, and it hopefully it works also for the emotional payoff in the end. I think it's as far as I've heard from people who have seen screenings of it, it's a film that touches people, and you have seen grown men sit in the end and cry. It's it comes in and touches something in us, I think, and I hope that the music plays the right role in that perspective.
Was there a scene where you thought a long time if it's the right music, or maybe it doesn't need music at all?
Yeah, we had. There's. I mean, without spoiling too much.
I have seen the film.
Yeah, but maybe the viewers haven't. There's a scene where Astrid is saying goodbye to the Danish character in the film, Marie. And that scene is very touching on its own, and that one took a lot of rewriting. I think what is in the film is maybe a version 4 or 5 of that cue. So that one was quite hard to nail exactly, and it was also, at some point I think we even recorded some really lush string lines to go with it. And in the final mix of the film, we decided to roll back some of that and just have a more subdued version of it. Because actually, I mean, Trine Dyrholm, who plays the foster mother in the film, she's such a lovely actress, and her with Alba together was just, it needed so little that you would still feel so much. So, but sometimes you have to go to the big place to find out that you were actually better off with something less. Yeah.
The film has also a kind of an end-title song. It starts like a children's song, and then gets over to a female voice singing the song. Is a song by you?
I didn't write it. No, it's written by Anne Brun, a Scandinavian artist, and as such, I didn't have anything to do with that song. So.
Why not?
It was when I came on. It was already written as well. So I know Anna and Pernille know each other from before. So I think it was a commission to write that for her.
Will there be a soundtrack release of your music for the film?
It's still not clear, but I'm working on that to happen. So I really hope so. The film is not being released in Sweden until September, so there's still some time for that to happen. But I should certainly hope so. I hope.
Which scene did you score first?
Let me think back. The first scene was quite late in the film, where Astrid and the little boy are in the bed together, and maybe you can recall the scene. And it has very, very simple sort of almost just a piano motive going backwards and forwards, and then at some point the organ comes in with a very simple melody as well. And that was actually the first thing that got scored, and a lot of that material stayed in the film.
Did you choose the scene, or did she give it to you as your first scene?
I think as I remember, we started off by naming maybe 4 or 5, as Pernille called them, mother scenes that would sort of influence on all the rest. I mean, there was like this place is very important for the story. Here in between, there might be some music, but it's not completely important what it is yet. We can figure it out later. But like these 5 places throughout the story, like anchor points, are really the first ones that we should sort of solve. Like what I said before, to actually find out the key to the equation. So it was kind of, you know, it was about solving that problem first, and this scene was just the first I worked on. So yeah.
You have composed music for, as I said at the start, for children's films and animation. Do you see yourself just a little bit becoming typecasted for a certain type of score or film?
I certainly don't hope so.
I hope so too, but if I look at IMDb, I see mostly children's series also. How do you see it?
Well, I think it is very much the real world for any composer, sort of making his or her way up, building a CV, building a career, that you get offered certain jobs first, and then the more fun or high profile jobs will come later as a result of that. And it has been a little bit a coincidence that I've been working a lot with children's films. But that being said, I really think that in children's films, as we said in the beginning, it's a world where music can also make a big difference to the film, and usually there's a tradition for the score to be able to speak a little bit more than maybe in drama films. But I mean, music is music to me, at least, and I very much hope that it wouldn't be like, oh, this guy can only do children's films. That would be very, very sad for me.
Since you composed the music for Flaskepost, there will be also a fourth film in the series. Will you compose the music for this one?
No, I won't. It's been. I think they're filming it right now, actually, and I have signed on to other projects that makes it unavailable to me time-wise. So.
Nordic films, Scandinavian films and series have still a good run, audience that likes the films and the music. What is your explanation?
I think the Nordic noir wave that has been going for the past couple of years or more is I think it has to do with different factors. Of course, it's a certain genre almost that has been establishing through some big series like Broen and The Killing and the Millennium films and so on. So with a certain aesthetics being used, and maybe also with the limitations on budgets, because in the Nordic countries we don't get gigantic budgets like in the US or in England or Germany for that matter. So we had to sort of focus on the things that were important in story wise and other things like that. So I'm not really sure if I can answer your question like it's because of this, but there are many factors in it, I think, and also, I mean, some of the acting talent that we have has been fueling it as well.